Here's a question that sounds simple, but isn't. Why is it so easy to spend money today, and so painfully hard to save it for tomorrow? Most people would say willpower, discipline, that savers are just stronger than spenders. But a group of neuroscientists put people inside brain scanners to find the real answer, and what they discovered has nothing to do with willpower at all. When you picture yourself far in the future, retired, decades older, your brain lights up in a very specific way. And here's the unsettling part. It's the same way it lights up when you think about a complete stranger. To the deepest part of your brain, the you who will need that retirement money isn't really you. It's someone else. And nobody wants to give their hard-earned cash to a stranger. The scientist behind this is a researcher named Hershfield, and the study he ran is quietly one of the most important things ever discovered about money. He took a group of people, slid them into an fMRI scanner, and watched a particular spot in the brain, a region that reacts one way when you think about yourself and a different way when you think about someone else. Then he asked them to think about themselves today. The brain lit up like it should. That's me. And then he asked them to think about themselves in the distant future. The very old version, the retired version. The brain's response shifted. For many people, thinking about their future self looked, on the scan, almost identical to thinking about another person entirely. Not a vague version of themselves. A stranger. And here's the detail that turns this from a curiosity into something that explains your whole financial life. The people whose brains showed the biggest gap, whose future self looked the most like a stranger, were also the people who saved the least. They consistently grabbed smaller rewards now instead of larger rewards later. The more disconnected they felt from their future self, the more they spent on their present one. It mapped almost perfectly. Think about what that actually means. Saving isn't a battle between a responsible you and a lazy you. It's a battle between you and a stranger you're being asked to fund. And your brain, quite reasonably, doesn't want to. There's a mechanism underneath this that economists have measured for nearly a century, and it has an ugly name. Temporal discounting. Stripped of the jargon, it means one simple, slightly disturbing thing. Your brain automatically marks down the value of anything in the future just because it's far away. You can feel this yourself with a quick test. Would you rather have $100 handed to you right now, or 120 in a year? Most people grab the 100, even though waiting 12 months for an extra 20% beats almost any investment on the planet. The future money is objectively worth more, but your brain shrinks it simply because it hasn't arrived yet. Now stack that on top of the stranger problem, and you see the real trap. The pleasure of spending is immediate. It's right here, sharp and real, happening to the you that exists right now. The reward of saving is distant, faded, and worst of all, it belongs to that grey stranger years down the line. So your brain runs the math and reaches an honest, brutal conclusion. Real pleasure for me now beats a faint maybe for someone I barely recognize later. And this is why it gets harder the further out the goal is. Telling someone to save for 40 years from now is asking them to sacrifice for a stranger so distant they're practically fictional. The brain was built to chase what's in front of it. Fruit on the tree, danger in the grass. It was never built to feel the reality of a person who won't exist for decades. This is exactly why the usual advice is so useless. Just be more disciplined. Just have more willpower. Just stop buying coffee. Every one of those assumes the problem is weakness, that if you simply tried harder, you'd win. But you can't out-discipline your own neural wiring for long. Willpower is a small, exhaustible thing, and it's being asked to fight a system running underneath your awareness all day, every day. You might win for a week, a month. Then one tired evening, the stranger loses, the present self wins, and the money's gone. And then comes the part that makes it worse, the guilt. You call yourself irresponsible, bad with money, hopeless. Here's what almost nobody tells you. That guilt is built on a lie. You were never weak. You were doing something almost impossible by force of will alone. Caring, in a real and motivating way, about a person your brain has quietly filed under someone else. The failure was never your character. It was the strategy. Trying to feel the future harder doesn't work, because the future self stays a stranger no matter how guilty you feel. Which raises the real question, the one the researchers actually went and answered. If willpower can't bridge the gap to the stranger, what can? Hershfield's team had a genuinely strange idea. If the problem is that your future self feels like a stranger, then maybe the fix isn't trying harder, it's introducing you to them, making that future person feel real and close and unmistakably you. So they ran an experiment that sounds almost too simple to work. They took people and showed them a digitally aged photo of their own face, a realistic picture of themselves as an old person. Just that, a glimpse of the real future face, and then they measured how much those people chose to save. The result was striking. People who met their aged self put noticeably more money toward the future than those who didn't. One photograph reached across the years and turned the stranger back into family. You don't need a lab to borrow this. The principle underneath it is what matters. Make the future self specific. Retirement is a grey, faceless word, and your brain treats it like one. So don't save for retirement. Save for a particular person on a particular ordinary morning, the older you in a specific kitchen, pouring coffee, calm, not afraid of a single bill. Picture them in detail. Give them a face. The more real that person becomes in your mind, the less saving feels like giving money away, and the more it feels like sending it ahead to someone you love. And there's a second move, just as powerful. Shrink the distance. 40 years is too far to feel. So don't aim there. Aim at the you of just 3 years from now. Close enough to be real, close enough to care about. The version of you who, 3 years from today, either opens an account with something in it, or opens one with nothing. That person isn't a stranger. That person is almost here. You build the bridge to the distant self one near believable step at a time. For years, maybe, you've carried a quiet verdict about yourself, that you're just not a saver, not disciplined, not good with money. You can hand that verdict back. It was never true. You were simply being asked to be generous to a stranger, running on a brain built to grab what's near and ignore what's far. The fix was never to feel more guilt or summon more willpower. It was to do the one thing that actually changes the math, to walk across the years and shake hands with the person waiting there. Because the moment your future self stops being a stranger and starts being you, saving quietly transforms. It stops feeling like punishment. It starts feeling like loyalty to someone real who is counting on you and who happens to be you. You were never bad at saving money. You just hadn't met the person you were saving it for. If you learned something today with us, like the video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. But before you go, I want to know, if you could sit down with yourself 30 years from now for 5 minutes, what's the first thing you'd ask them? Leave it in the comments down below.